I have had a couple of requests for videos that explain the difference between Mosaic crochet, interlocking crochet, and tapestry crochet. And I just want to show you a little something that I've been working on. Here's a Mosaic crochet monstera leaf, ta-da! And a tapestry crochet monstera leaf. Anyway, I just had to show you those because I really love them. A video like that would take a super long time to make. So in the meantime, I just wanted to put up something really fast that might explain a little to you guys. So I have an old yarn hookers video that I've condensed down to give you the gist of everything. So without further ado, let's watch the yarn hookers explain interlocking crochet that also has a little bit of mosaic and tapestry in it. Look at that blanket in the background. I'm obsessed with that. I'm going to have to make that blanket that's in the background.
It looks like it's got squares, right?
Yeah, you'll see a picture of it some more a little bit later.
Tanis Gallic, I think it's Gallic. I'm not sure if it's Gaelic or Gallic, so I'm just going to say Gallic. Mm-hmm. I first heard of interlocking crochet when I was at the library. And I actually saw this book. So Tanis Gallic is like the big name or one of the big names in interlocking crochet. And this particular book has 80 individual patterns. Now being said, I've looked at this book and there's not a lot of pictures. It's a lot of written patterns. I knew that I was not going to be able to do much with this book without some sort of tutorials or education as to how these patterns work. So just looking at the book broke my brain a little bit.
But she has a YouTube channel.
She does. That's what I was saying. She's got a channel, and actually, I think her introduction video is on this slideshow, and she explains things well. I'm just not there yet. It requires a lot of practice and patience, at least for me.
It really, 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 really does. But I think the thing about it is the result is worth it.
She does beautiful work. Mm-hmm. And that's what I see in this slide. Tanis Gallic has several videos explaining and demonstrating the interlocking crochet technique.
Okay, well, everybody can check it on the slideshow.
Or you can just even plug in her name in YouTube after our video, please, and check out her videos because she does have a whole channel. So diagrams or charts in that book, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I just remember seeing lots and lots and lots of printed, written.
It's kind of like mosaic crochet in that I would say that any patterns are very similar between mosaic and...
I think you turned it on.
The link. Sorry, you guys.
Oh, that's okay. I thought it was Jen.
Between mosaic and interlocking crochet, I think the format is similar in that, there's a bunch of written stuff. And there's a bunch of written stuff, but there's also graphs that show the design. I wouldn't say it's better than mosaic crochet. It's just different. And I'll show you in just a little bit what I mean by that.
Ginger's done a lot of research on this week. What is interlocking crochet? So interlocking crochet is a method of crocheting 2 layers of fillet style mesh sheets in such a way that the 2 layers are woven together to create a single reversible fabric. Has anyone's mind blown yet? Depending on the stitch used, it can create the same pattern on the front and back or 2 completely separate designs on the front and back. But basically, you're creating 2 layers of mesh that are woven together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Vicki says on the mosaic, it is easier going by the graph. And I will have to tell you, Vicki, that I believe that interlocking is the same way. I just like going by the graph.
So these are some examples of some filet crochet pictures that I just found on Pinterest, I think. So the one on the left, the pink and yellow, is called, it's a Tea Sweets Day. That's the name of the website. So that's one of her patterns. And then the blue and white one is a pattern by Kick and Crochet. So those are a couple of websites that you can check out. And if you want to check out our slideshow, either on our website or on our Facebook group page, these will be there, and you can just click on the pictures and you'll be linked right to these websites.
Awesome. I want to make that blanket. That's a really cool looking blanket.
Asking, would it work for a throw? Absolutely. Totally work for throws. They will be heavy because they are 2 layers. So it's kind of like the thickness of a blanket that you folded in half. So you might want to keep that in mind when choosing your yarn. You might want to go with a lighter weight yarn because it is doubled. The sample I'm working on is using a DK weight, and I really like the DK weight with this particular technique. So these were some patterns I found on Ravelry. I can't remember. Did I put the name? Oh, I didn't put the name. I meant to. Well, again, you can click on these and it'll link you right to the Ravelry patterns. The one with the cat, she's got a whole series of squares with different animals, and so those are really cool.
So cute. But you have the clickable links on the pictures, right?
They are.
Okay, so we can find those from there. I really, really like the animals one. That's neat.
Yeah. And the black and white one, I believe those are a pattern for placemats. So those are cool.
Ooh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I want to make those too.
They make me think of bathroom tiles.
I'm going to go back again. But that would be pretty like if you used a yarn that has different colors in it that's really pretty.
So the next slide has a link to the tutorial that I used. Oh my gosh, here it is. I was going to say, what did I do with my sample? So this is the one that made the most sense to me to get started. And I think part of it was because it wasn't really filet crochet style. Instead of having those little windows that you make where you do a double crochet and then you chain one, skip one, and then a double crochet, and it makes that little box mesh. This one actually used chains of 5. So you chained up 5 and you didn't make really a window so much as an arch. And so for me, that was a little bit easier to get started with. So I was able to make just a little swatch before my brain turned off. But this is what mine looked like. I used a variegated, beautifully colored yarn that Mel is probably very familiar with. It's that one with the bright halo. Remember that, Mel?
Yes.
And then just a light green that was the same color as the green in the variegated. I really liked this video. So if you want a simpler version of how to get started with it and maybe kind of just get an idea or a feel for it, this is a good video. It's by Liza Walters.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like that. That's super pretty. That'd make a pretty baby blanket.
Yeah, or even a scarf.
A scarf? Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay. Oh, this is me.
And look, we found the same lady.
That's right. We did. This lady has a playlist, and I put the link in it right under, or just click on her picture. You'll get the link to her playlist of beginning interlocking crochet tutorials, and she goes through all of the basics of just the basic steps, the basic way to do it. Very patient, you will know how to interlock crochet after you watch her videos. Did
you watch her videos? Because I struggled with them a little.
I watched the first one. I didn't watch the remaining ones. I just kind of went off that first one. Interlocking crochet is a method of crocheting 2 layers of fillet style mesh sheets in such a way that the 2 layers are woven together to create a single reversible fabric. Depending on the stitch used, it can create the same pattern on the front and back, or 2 completely different designs on the front and back. It's intricate. And if you find a pattern that you like, what I found, I'll tell you when we get a little more into it. Okay, now for those of you who prefer reading and looking at pictures as opposed to watching a tutorial, this one is really, really good. It's a beginner's guide to interlock. You click on this picture, it'll take you to the website, and she tells you how to make this little swatch right here. You could use it for what are those things called? Trivets or whatever, or just something
sure. Maybe a pot holder, but I'm not sure.
Or a square for a blanket or something. But it's a very simple beginner's guide to some basic stitches. And that's what I found the same on the Tanis Gallic, that her teaching, there were 9 videos in the whole playlist. And it was just teaching the very basics. Okay, now look at this blanket, you guys.
See the whole thing.
Who
Look
would
at the flowers and the stars and the hearts?
Who would not love to make that blanket? Is that it's completely reversible, so that the other side, I don't have a picture of the reverse side of it, but it looks just as cool on the other side. And it's this, I found this one on Instagram. And if you click on the Instagram thing right there, it'll take you to that person's Instagram page.
Ginge, can you enlarge Joan Miller's comment? Because she says, if you look at my picture, it says, I love you to the moon and back. And that is Interlocking Crochet by Lisa Conley. That is really cool. I can see it when I enlarge it on my screen.
Yeah, that is so cool. I'm going to have to look up some Lisa Connolly patterns for sure.
Yeah. So Joan, tell us about your experience. Now, when you started doing interlocking crochet, were you baffled by it? Did it come naturally and really easy to you? Do you use grafts? I'm really curious because I do think it's such a beautiful technique, but I'm not sure that it's so much different from Mosaic that it's worth putting the time in. Does that sound bad? That sounds bad. That makes me sound very lazy, which I am.
I think it's a completely different animal.
So I'm seeing an Instagram feed for Kate Dedman.
I was thinking Kate, but I said Ashley because I get those two mixed up. Ashley's another interlocking crochet person.
Okay, gotcha.
And she does really cool work too. But it shows you kind of how when you use different colors on your project, how it just makes it look totally different.
I will say, and someone else brought this up, Wynette said it too, the nice thing about interlocking is there aren't all those ends to weave in.
There aren't.
And also it is reversible, where Mosaic not so much.
Right. So this is the comparison that I did. Using this graph, I worked up a top swatch that's Mosaic, a middle swatch that is interlocking, and a bottom swatch that is Tapestry. And I used DK yarn on all of these. Let me show you.
Did you start off with the same stitch count for your base chain or for your foundation chain?
Now on this one, I didn't. I had to make it twice as long because it has the two different sheets.
Okay.
If that makes sense. This is the back. Here, you want me to make this bigger?
Yes.
Sure.
This is the front side.
Okay.
And this is the back side. And you see how it's reversible. Also, oh yeah, I had to.
Nice that you're holding it up nice and close like that because you can kind of see how there's two layers of mesh.
What you do is you crochet down one side, and then with the next sheet you crochet down that one side, and when you flip it over, you crochet down one side with the main color, you crochet down the same side with the contrasting color. Once you get used to it, I found it easy to do just because you look at the graph and you kind of get used to the stitches. And I think knowing Mosaic crochet first helped a lot, just because I knew kind of what I was looking for on the graphs. I'll show you another. I did a square. It's instead of going row by row, it's a square. I did this with a 4-weight yarn.
So that when you worked in the round, right?
So this is what it looks like. This is what a 4-weight yarn compared to a DK weight. These two yarns right here, one is hold on, let me grab the yarn that I used. It's Sarah Mora's Studio Anti-Pilling DK.
Okay.
And then that's the main color. And then the contrasting color is a skinny cake, a Karen skinny cake. If that gives you guys any frame of reference as to what this yarn feels like.
There was a question in the chat, Ginger, whether you feel that this is a yarn eater. I personally kind of feel like it does because it's kind of like double stranding in how much yarn you're going to use because you're making a double layer. So
it almost feels like you're making 2 blankets at one time.
I don't know whether I like the design on this side more
I like the other side. I
or
like
this side.
the real simple one. I like
Yeah.
high contrast.
Okay. Now this one, that's the 4-weight. What I used was just, both of these are the Premier Just Yarn from Dollar Tree. But I thought it was interesting how different it looked with DK, or I'm sorry, DK compared to 4-weight yarn.
Lee wants to know, could you use a fingering weight? I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah, I think that it would make something very pretty and delicate looking with fingering weight.
But it would take forever.
It would take you a long time.
Right. It would make a beautiful shawl, I think, even the summer shawl, because it does have the holes in it because it's the mesh, and it'd be a little more lightweight. But that's just the thought. Now, let me show you while I'm on the big screen. I want to show you what I made a similar mosaic. Everybody's familiar with the Mosaic crochet.
Right.
I just looked off the graph using no pattern or whatever. That's what I love about this interlocking crochet, tapestry crochet, and mosaic crochet. You look off of the graph, and once you get familiar with the techniques, you can just look off the graphs and make these things, which in a lot of things on Pinterest, especially if you go to the cross stitch Pinterest boards, they have really, really, really cool graphs on things to make.
That's so funny that you said that. Right when you said that, Alice in the chat said it was kind of like counted cross stitch, but for crochet. It absolutely is. And you know what? I have to say is also really similar to that is Fair Isle. Everybody's afraid of Fair Isle. Oh. If you can do mosaic, you can do Fair Isle.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't. Oh yeah, I've crocheted Fair Isle, but I've also knitted Fair Isle.
In both, either way though, and it's the same thing. You read the graph.
I did.
I was going to read it. Lori says, Ginger, are you saying that you used one chart for all 3 of those techniques?
Yep, it's just a graph. And not only that, I didn't get as far as I wanted to on the tapestry crochet swatch, but that's what that looks like.
See, I think that tapestry does not look as crisp.
No, it doesn't look as crisp at all.
Is mosaic.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's pretty, but it just kind of looks like someone took the mosaic and
muched it.
Put a layer of Vaseline over it.
It looks like a blurry mosaic. And then the back, it's interesting, the tapestry looks exactly the same on the back as it does the front. The mosaic, of course, is mosaic. It's this on the front.
And it's lines on the back.
The stripes on the back. And then, of course, this is reversible.
That's like a photo negative.
And I used... with a tapestry, and this one, I used, the white one is the Loops and Threads Cozy Wool, and then the contrasting color is a Lion Brand Mandala.
Okay.
And they're both 3-weight.
That was very, very helpful, Ginger. Thank you for sharing all that and putting all that work into it.
All the work that you put into that. That's amazing. Thank you, Ginger.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. It was absolutely fun. So this one,
my gosh, look at that.
Beautiful.
So, of course, the first thing I want to try to make is this. And this is where I was pulling out my hair because...
head first.
Wait, you tried to start with this?
Yeah, I did. And
it was brave.
It was like, you know what? There's diagonal. There's all these other different stitches. I don't know if you know Mosaic well enough to know that you can also do different diagonals and stuff in Mosaic. You start getting a little more intricate and complicated. Well, that's how this was.
Wow.
And that's what I was starting off with.
Yeah, well, goodness gracious. Here I started off with the most simple thing. I struggled with it, and you're starting off with that.
Ginger's always been the type to go head first into the deep end.
So. Absolutely. Yeah, she doesn't even stick her toe in to test the waters, man. She just goes for it.
I just thought this was gorgeous. And what you can do is click on this picture, and it will take you to this person's Ravelry, and she has a lot of really pretty interlocking crochet patterns. On this one right here, I just grabbed this graph off of Pinterest, and it didn't have a pattern for it. So I forget who asked earlier, but this particular swatch doesn't have a pattern. I just went off the graph.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we have a ton of patterns and stuff linked. And I am also going to put up
You get a screenshot of this off of our slides, probably. Lori asks, the one in the round, did you use the same chart for that?
Oh, no, the one in the round.
Yarn Fairy says, go big or go home, Ginger. That's our Ginger. Lori says, I hate carrying yarn, so I don't think I would like Fair Isle. I will say with the interlocking, there's a little bit of carrying yarn just at the end of each row. You do have to carry just one color up each row, but it's not like Fair Isle.
Or like a tapestry crochet that has a bunch of colors.
Heather says that's too complex. To me, it looks like tiles that you would see, like mosaic tiles in like a very fancy building or a piece of art, really.
It really does look like a piece of art, doesn't it? I did purchase the pattern.
Did you?
And this pattern was only $7.50.
Oh,
Wow.
Alice
Yeah.
said that she thinks in finding that pattern that you also actually found the definition of death by crochet.
Yes.
It is absolutely gorgeous.
But it's very attainable. If you can learn mosaic crochet, you can learn interlocking crochet.
Judy said, can anyone do that, Ginger? Of course, anyone can do that, but I would highly suggest before you jump into this that you build your skills up a little bit. I would not jump into this right now. I'm an intermediate crocheter, and no, I would not.
I jumped into this and I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to make this no problem. And then I got a migraine. I had to take a nap. I was like, I'm going to start with something easier.
Yeah. Well, that's like me waking up tomorrow morning and say, I think I'm going to start running and then trying a marathon. Jamie said she did mosaic throw rugs and pillowcases because of the ends. So much trouble keeping the edging somewhat decent.
Now, Jamie, have you ever tried the enclosed border for mosaic crochet? Because I made a blanket for my daughter with the enclosed border, and you don't have to weave in any ends at all.
I've seen where people have done that, and I think that's a great idea. And you get a little bit of this texture because it's like a stuffed border.
Yeah, I've done that. Actually, there's a little tiny, literally, it's like a 45-second video on my channel. It's called the enclosed border technique.
For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, now there are two types of mosaic crochet. This one right here is not the one that carries the yarn. This is the one that begins and ends each row a new strand of yarn. And what we're talking about is the ends that have all of this fringe.
I didn't have a chance to actually try this out, but I found a couple of them that these looked a little bit more simple to do. So I decided to see, just to show you guys, when I started doing my research, what I found and where. Again, we've got the, what is that? Something, I have her like kicking crochet or something like that. I have her here, but then I show her a little bit later. But she's got a series on her blog as well as on her YouTube. But that goes to that first square. But she does a full series of different mosaics that you can do. And then the Bargello interlocking. I guess that's what you name that particular shape, the kind of Tetris looking shape, which was, I thought, really interesting. And it looks like, if you're going to dig into it, it's not, don't be like Ginger. That might be a way to go for.
Or mine.
Let me tell you, okay, this is, you start off doing it in the round. I would recommend doing a row to row instead of doing an in the round first. But definitely start off with just pretty basic steps. And once again, going back to those first couple of slides that I showed you where it has that tutorial by, what's her name? That one lady that both me and Julie did.
Oh,
they have the she has the tutorial playlist for very beginners. And then if you're more of a written person, then there's that next slide.
Gotcha.
Leah Arnold says, I dove headfirst into learning all things knitting about 6 months ago. Maybe in a few years I will learn interlock.
Definitely try it. Anybody? Oh, so cute.
Oh, the top two, these are all on YouTube. So those top two, those are both Mikey from the Crochet Crowd and Yarn Inspirations, because he works with Yarn Inspirations. So the gray and white is that's actually burnout blanket yarn. So it might be easier if you've got that thicker yarn and you're doing this the stitch like what you showed, Julie.
With the arch.
Exactly. But it's probably going to be relatively heavy. However, I have found that burnout blanket yarn, when you make it like that, the heavier part, it makes for a great play mat.
Oh, I bet it really would.
It makes for a great play mat.
And you know what? If you used a heavy cotton, I could see it even being a good bath mat.
Yes. Yep. I agree with that. Absolutely. Yes.
And if you use that big thick yarn like that baby yarn, and I know there are a lot of pretty baby yarns at Michael's that are in the new yarns. If you used it on a thing this big, it would be 3 times this size.
I love that. Now the other one with the cute little baby on it that looks a lot like your little grandbaby.
It really does. It's like
that angle.
So sweet.
If she looked up, your baby would be so much prettier because of her eyes. They're just the best eyes on your little baby.
She's like a little princess cartoon baby.
But I do want to say that in the video, when I was watching it, that Mikey specifically recommended if you have difficulty reading diagrams, you really want to learn, because this technique is so much better if you know how to read diagrams. So, but he specifically mentioned that in the one with the baby in that tutorial, which both of those are video tutorials. Now I have Kick and Crochet, and I know she's been mentioned a couple of times. I have Kick and Crochet listed there, and that link goes to her playlist for teaching. So you guys have got links to 2 playlists in this slideshow. But this is a playlist to her interlocking series. So and it looks like a pretty good one for beginners. I'm going to tell you, I didn't run through it with her. I just didn't have time. But when I was looking at it, it looked really good for beginners. And I think that there's a different square. You know how whenever Jaden stitches this her yearly calendar, that it's kind of like that. Each square digs into something a little bit different.
I like this question. Thank you, ladies, for this great info. Do any of you know which technique it is when you crochet color 1 across and back on the wrong side, then color 2 across front and back? That's the 2. That's when you do the mosaic crochet.
2 rows. What do they call that? It's like 2 rows at a time, right?
It's mosaic crochet too, and I saw Mikey do it on the Crochet Crowd. I think that's what you're talking about. But it's also mosaic crochet. It's just a
different type.
It's just a different type of mosaic crochet. But you know what? I wish I would have made a swatch of that, but I just didn't. I ran out of time.
Wynette has the name. It's mosaic overlay.
That's the 2 is mosaic overlay, or when you do the.
I didn't know what it was called. I knew what she was talking about. I just didn't know what it was called.
Thank you, Wynette.
Deborah says, I've not even heard of this technique. I'm so grateful to y'all for expanding my horizon. Happy to do it.
Well, and we learn more too. That's what I love about this, is we actually end up learning.
I hope this blast from the past will help explain a few of the differences between interlocking, mosaic, and tapestry crochet. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments below. And also, don't forget to check out the slideshow. Yes, we still have the slideshow up, and the link for it is listed in the descriptions and in the first comment. So click that, it'll take you to the slideshow. Okay, you guys have a wonderful night. Love you.